Whether you're the head of schools, an executive director, a board member, or a director of admissions, the latest Alberta education announcement within Budget 2026 deserves a closer look. Not because they target independent schools, they don't. There is no us versus them in this budget, but you will notice they are reshaping the education landscape that every school operates within. So here's what's happening. The government is fast-tracking the $8.6 billion school construction program that was announced a couple of years ago, aiming to build 30 new schools per year and modernizing 8 schools annually. Over the next few years, this creates roughly 200,000 new and modernized student spaces, primarily in high-growth areas in and around Calgary and Edmonton. But it doesn't stop at buildings. The province is also committing $10.8 billion in operational funding for education, with plans to hire 5,000 new staff over the next 3 years. 3,000 teachers, 2,000 educational assistants and support staff, with 1,600 teachers and 800 support staff being hired immediately for the 2027 school year, and teacher salaries increasing 12 to 17% over the next 4 years. Also, a new pilot program that could allow some nonprofit private schools that serve students with special needs to receive capital funding if they transition toward public funding. So when you take a step back, independent schools in Alberta are now facing 3 major pressures, and these pressures don't exist in isolation. They directly affect something boards, donors, and lenders are asking more frequently right now. Will the seats continually be filled? That question matters because the province has allocated $90 million to support independent school expansions. But the funding generally works through capital matching programs, where schools must raise a majority of the project themselves. In many cases, the structure looks something like this. For every $2 a school raises, the province may contribute $1. So if a school hopes to build a $15 million expansion, they need to raise $10 million privately in order to unlock the $5 million in provincial funding. Which means the biggest challenge for most independent schools isn't accessing government funding. It's proving there'll be enough demand to justify the expansion. And this is where the pressures inside Budget 2026 start to matter. The first pressure is charter school expansions. Charter schools often mirror what independent schools offer: specialized programs, strong academics, smaller class sizes, and clear educational philosophy. The difference is public funding now expanded further. With $215 million dedicated to expanding charter schools, thousands of new charter school seats are being added to the system. For parents, this changes the comparison. If 2 schools appear to offer similar academic environments, but one is tuition-free, families naturally begin to ask why they should pay tuition at all. For independent schools that haven't clearly differentiated their mission, this can make enrollment extremely difficult. And this matters beyond enrollment. Because if a school hopes to raise millions for facility expansions, donors will want confidence that the school can continue filling the classroom, even as charter schools add thousands of new publicly funded seats. Which means charter expansion doesn't just create competition for families. It can also make capital fundraising harder for some schools, particularly the small ones that rely heavily on demonstrating enrollment growth. The second pressure is public system alternatives. Public school divisions like Palliser are also expanding specialized academies and programs, arts, sports, STEM, language immersion, and other faith-based alternatives. Many independent schools built their reputation on are now appearing inside the publicly funded systems, increasing competitions for families. 20 years ago, if parents wanted specialized educational environments, independent schools were often one of a few options. Today, many of those options exist within the public system. That means families now have more choice than ever before, many of them without tuition. And when parents cannot see a meaningful difference between schools, they often compare price first. This becomes especially important when independent schools are trying to demonstrate demand for future expansion. If a family begins choosing public alternatives instead, some schools may struggle to show consistent enrollment growth that donors and lenders want to see before supporting major facility projects. Which again means the schools most likely to expand are often those that already have strong identity, strong demand, and clear differentiation. The third pressure is teacher recruitment. This may be the most significant pressure of all. The province plans to hire 3,000 teachers while increasing teacher salaries 12 to 17% over the next 4 years. So where are these teachers going to come from? The U of C, the U of A, the U of L only graduate a limited number of teachers each year, which means the public system will likely recruit aggressively across the entire education sector. For independent schools, this creates two challenges. First, with public starting salaries now at $70,000 a year and senior teachers getting paid $119,000 a year, some of your teachers may leave for this and other public pension benefits. Second, recruiting new high-quality teachers may become more difficult, and many independent schools can only hire teachers when enrollment actually grows. You cannot justify hiring another teacher unless tuition revenue supports the classroom. So even if family demands exist, schools may not be able to open additional classrooms if they cannot recruit the teachers to staff them. And that creates another complication for schools considering expansion. Because if a school builds additional classrooms through capital projects, they must also be confident that they can staff those classrooms in the future. For smaller schools, especially, losing even 2 or 3 teachers can significantly affect operations, which means enrollment growth may stall, not because families aren't interested, but because the school simply cannot staff additional classes. This is especially true for high and moderate risk schools, typically those with 1 to 500 students. Large schools with well over 700 students often have advantages: established reputation, larger waiting lists, stronger fundraising capacity, more stable teacher pipelines. These schools are often the ones best positioned to raise the millions required to expand their campuses and access provincial matching funding. But smaller schools operate on thinner margins. If enrollment dips slightly or if teacher recruitment becomes difficult, the impact can be immediate, which means some schools may find themselves caught between rising competition for families and rising competition for teachers at the exact same time. So here's the insight most independent schools miss. You cannot outcompete public schools on salary alone. The schools that thrive will compete on mission, culture, and identity. Teachers want to work where the mission is clear and meaningful. Families want to enroll where school culture is intentional and value-driven. Communities support schools that make a visible impact. The math is simple. You can't outpay the public system. You have to outculture them. You can't win a bidding war against a $10.8 billion budget, but you can win the war of identity. And that's where 404 Creative comes in. We don't make cinematic videos and take pretty pictures that do nothing on social media while collecting dust sitting on your websites. Anyone can do that. We use strategic content solutions specifically tailored for independent schools with real, measurable, proven results. The strategy is primarily used to attract your ideal families, reposition your school to stand out against charter and alternative education programs, and grow enrollment. But we can also use this strategy to help independent schools clarify the story, strengthen their brand, and communicate the value of their mission, making the difference obvious to families, teachers, and the community. In this new market, if a family or a teacher thinks your tuition is too high or your salary is too low, it's because your mission is becoming invisible. We can make it impossible to ignore. The schools that do this attract stronger families, retain better teachers, and stand out in a more competitive education landscape. The schools that don't will slowly get lost between charter schools and public alternatives and the teacher recruitment squeeze. Now listen, what we do isn't for every school. It's not meant to be. It's only for the proactive thinking schools that refuse to be enroll capped by a provincial budget they did not write. So if you're ready to stop playing defense and start repositioning your school to lead the market, go to our website, fill out the survey, and we'll see if your school is the kind of school we help thrive. Because over the next decade, the schools that succeed won't just have strong academics. They'll clearly communicate why their mission matters in a rapidly changing education market.